Hello, YouTube! I am Pinstar, and this is Airport CEO Strategies and Tactics, Episode 1. So, yes, I've been playing this game to death. This game has intrigued me. I know a glut of airline-type tycoon games have come out recently, but this is the best of the bunch, in my honest opinion. So, with that being said, it is also in early alpha, so bugs, glitches, and other such things may crop up, but hopefully not. In the meantime, I will be imparting some strategies and some tactics to you guys on how to best get started. Oh, and this isn't just on any kind of regular playthrough here. No, my friends. Well, first off, let's get our CEO up and running here. Why not? She looks fine. From I think that was from one of my other series. Is here. Now, the first question is, where do we make our airport? And at the moment, at this stage of development, this decision does not matter. But, because I asked the developer specifically, if the physical location of the airport has an impact on the weather, and presumably the weather having an impact on your airport itself. And they said, not yet, meaning it's coming. But that being said, you know what? Let's just find ourselves a nice spot here. A nice exciting spot, a nice destination spot, something that's going to be hot, happening, and just, the new go-to place in the world where everyone's going to want to be flying to. That's right, my folks. That's right. It's going to be Billings, Montana. Billings, Montana is going to be the new hotness. Dubai? Forget about Dubai. Dubai's bunk. No, Billings, Montana is where it's at. And that's where we're going to be plopping down our airport. So what are we going to be calling this airport here? Well, I don't think it's just going to be an airport or an airfield or a military base or an exchange or an international airway. No, it's going to be an experience. And visiting this airport is going to be a destination, not just a form of transportation. So we will call this the Extreme Billings Experience, or with an airport code of EBE. And of course, we couldn't call it an extreme experience if we didn't play the game on Extreme. That's right, folks. We're going to be doing this strategy and tactics series on Extreme. Only $250,000 to our name. We're going to have to make do with that. And you know what? Palm trees. That's what it's Billing. It's in the north. It's cold. It's windy. Our logo is freaking palm trees. Deal with it. By the way, this video is starting on build version 0.22.1. So if you're watching this sometime in the future, there may have things may have been maybe a little bit different compared to when this video came up. But this is the latest build, as it were. So this is what we're working with. All right, so some of you may have watched my earlier quick tips video where I show you how to get started with General Aviation on an extreme difficulty. And in a way, this is going to kind of mirror that video, at least in terms of getting our feet on the ground. But as far as the positioning of everything goes, that's going to be a little bit different. So what we need to do is, General Aviation at the beginning of the game is your key to success. Yes, you can leap right from nothing into commercial airlines on easier difficulties. Like if you have $2 million in the bank, you can skip General Aviation entirely and just go right for commercial stuff. But being that we are on the extreme difficulty, we only have $250,000 to our name, we've got a couple more restraints to what we can do. So what we must do is spend as much of our money on stuff that will make us back money as quickly as possible. So in order to do that, we need a few minimum requirements. One is a runway, of course. Only flavor of runway available at the moment is the small runway, but that's fine. That's also $100,000. So that by itself represents a significant chunk of our starting cash gone. But we have no choice. You can't have an airport without a runway. They got to land here somehow. Now, before in my last video, in my quick tips video, I just slapped it down everywhere. Here, we're going to be a little bit more methodical about our choice of locations for, well, just about everything, because we're going to be thinking both long-term and short. So what we're going to do here, and my inclination when building within a constrained space is to start in a corner. So that way, if I need to expand outwards, I have all the room in the world. Whereas if I just start right here in the middle, I'm going to have my expansion sort of cut off depending on which way I go, and things will be separated. That's no good. So we're going to be starting here in the corner. Now, instead of being in the perfect corner, I'm going to go up 2 spaces. I'll show you why later. But now, boop, we've got our runway. Now, the other thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get a taxiway both attached to essentially both ends of our runway so that our planes can land and get off the runway and take off, or get onto the runway so they can take off. And for that, we're going to need the taxiway foundation. Now, being that we do not have a lot of money to throw around, we are going to go with the cheapest option, the grass. Everything's going to be going grass in the early game, because every single buck we can save, we will be saving, because, again, we don't have a lot of cash to throw around. So for our bottom exit here, we're going to start by sending out a taxiway down here at the very bottom. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So six long. Again, a little bit more on why I'm deciding that specific length later. But 6 away from here, and we go all the way up and connect it back up here. All right, so we've got our runway, we've got our taxiway, but now we need to slap down a location for some of our stands, our small stands. These are going to be where the General Aviation craft can actually land and park, and that's what entices them to come to our airport. They need to find a place to land and park, presumably just to chill out or do whatever. It's kind of sort of simulated off screen. You don't actually have to deal with the people or the pilot that's flying it or anything else. They just park, land, they park, and then they take back off a little while later, which is good for us because we don't have to get a lot of infrastructure up and running for them. Right then, so as far as spacing here, we want to give ourselves enough space. Now, when it comes to taxiways, right now, there's really no real space constraints because collisions are not turned on yet in this version of the game. Meaning that if an airplane's wings clip something else, visually that is, there's no in-game consequence. That being said, I know that the developer here is going for realism eventually here, and therefore you want to be wary of wingspans and things clipping into other things. So everything I've seen so far is that for small planes, they require a space on either side of the taxiway to avoid clipping things, and medium ones they need 2 spaces away, and that's so we're going to be keeping that distancing in mind. Even though it's not strictly required for the game, I figure, let's build up some good habits now, so that when that patch does hit us, we don't have to completely rewrite our building techniques here. And honestly, it's not really that cost inefficient to space things out that way. So what we're going to do is, since we need to plan for medium planes going up and down this main spine here, we're going to want to set things at least two away from it here. I'm just using this as sort of a spacing tool. The concrete tiles are great for spacing tools. If you keep the game paused, you can use that to sort of count out the number of spaces, and then when you're done, you just delete it with the bulldozer tool. You get all your money back, and it doesn't generate any extra jobs for your construction workers later on. So it's a good way to use if you have specific spaces in mind. And I do have some specific spaces in mind. So let's see here. I want to go 10 spaces, so 2 spaces away from here, and then another 10 spaces. And then we can start placing our stands here. Again, where you want to go with the grass. And these I'm going to place all the way down here. I want these right at the bottom. So they're going to be, one right here, one right here, one right here. We're going to go for a total of 6. All right, so now that we've got our spacers done with, we can get rid of those. See how we get all that money back. See, it doesn't even charge our hourly balance until you unpause and the game figures out the net difference of all the stuff you've paid for. So it helps you avoid wasting any money. All right, so we're going to want to break out our taxiways here. Now, I do anticipate eventually some larger planes going down this little offshoot, so we're going to want to give 2 spaces away from it. So we're going to go like this. And then 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, just to efficiently use this little arm right here, we are going to want to go up to put our other stands, but I'm going to put a few more spaces than down below here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 spaces. And this, again, this sort of rolls into a longer-term plan. In the immediacy, we could just jam it up there for all we want. And actually, you know what? We probably could if we wanted to save a little bit of money here. We could do... but then that's just going to look uneven and meh. We'll start it spaced out like that. 1, 2, 3. Now, we are missing a couple more components here, but the last major component that we are missing here that would prevent us from doing anything. We've got the runway, we've got the stands, we've got the taxiways here. Two last things we need. One is the small ATC tower. Nothing can take off or land until you've got this bad boy built. Luckily, it does not really matter where you build this thing. So I'm just going to park it up right up here. It's still 2 away from our thing, so nothing's going to clip it. So boom, we got our tower right there. Then the other thing that we need, now thankfully this does not cost any money, is to actually plan out our taxiway path. It's all well and good to build the foundations, but you actually have to plan out the path in order for the planes to know where they're allowed to go. Now you can't plan it out on non-foundations, that's why you need to build the foundations, but you still need to map it out. Luckily, mapping it out costs you nothing. It's the foundations where things cost you. So you want to make sure that this links into everything. Now, another note that we need to keep in mind here is what direction do we want our planes to go? They don't always go in that direction, but there is an ideal, and I'll go into probably in a future episode some of the things that can cause your planes to go in unintended directions. But for the moment, since money is so tight, we are going to be building in a manner that basically will allow us to we're going to be building as if all the planes are going to go the desired direction here. So the desired direction here is that they take off and land north to south. So when they land down here, taxi down here. We're going to want to put a holding point right here, because if they come on up here and someone's trying to pull out, we want that someone to pull all the way out before someone tries to push their way back in. Similar concept to like an elevator. You want the people to get out first, and then you can let other people in. And then likewise, we're going to want a holding point right before the runway, so to make sure people just sit there and wait until the runway is actually clear. If you were to put this holding point further away, they'd sit further away, and then they'd have to taxi all the way up and then onto the runway when it was their turn. That would waste time. So this runway holding point you want right next to the runway. All right, I think we are good for our initial placements. Now, what we need to do is we need to get into contracts. And it looks like we're getting the duplicated contract bug here, but that's okay. You only generally have highway, HWY, as your sole contractor. Well, actually, hang on. Let me see if this one, yeah, it's the same one. This one is kind of a meh contractor, but they're your only choice in the beginning. The one thing you want to pay attention to is the hourly fee used per contractor. Now, $7.8 an hour is actually not that bad for HWY. I've seen it as high as 9 sometimes, and that can be a bit of a drain because things get multiplied out when you hire 52 people out there. So, well, we have no real choice here, so we're going to assign, yeah, that was just a double contract here. And then we're going to go to operations, construction, and deploy them all. And now it is time we unpaused here. All right. Now, one other thing we can do here, we can open our airport and always accept General Aviation because no one's actually going to come until all the required components are actually built. All right, finally getting their boxes, so everyone's pouring out and grabbing a box here. We can go ahead and fast forward here. Yeah, see how we've spent just about everything. In fact, we're probably going to go a little bit into the negatives, which at the moment there isn't actually any kind of a penalty or harm from going into the negatives, so it's okay if we dip there, but we won't be able to build anything new if you go into the negatives. So you have to make sure that you're going to have enough income to bring yourself back out. All right, we can go ahead and open this runway. Again, nothing's going to show up until all the components needed are present. So until there's at least one stand open and until at least that tower is up and running, planes won't show up. Now, here's a little tip to minimizing your contractor costs here. When you're throwing down a large project here, keep in your sights this little drop pod here. All right, so we got our first stand ready to go. We're going to mark it for General Aviation and open it. So that's another component. Again, still not going to get any planes until that tower is built. All right, see how this box area is slowly being depleted? Well, let's keep a close eye on that. As soon as the last box... Oh, are you kidding me? We have to wait. All right, there. As soon as the last box is taken, dismiss them all. The people that have boxes in hand will actually finish their job before leaving. So you can safely dismiss your contractors while people are still building, and they'll finish the job as long as they've built the boxes. All right, so now here we go. We've got our first things. Now that we got our tower up, we've got our first General Aviation flights flying in. And you get income from General Aviation from 2 important sources in the beginning. Once you develop a little bit more, you'll get it from 3. But in the very beginning, you get it from 2 sources. One, and if we'll see an example of this or not, actually, because it just filled up. You get, by default, you get $400 every time a plane lands or takes off. So every one of these planes here is going to generate me at minimum $800. And then you can see it's generating me $25 a pop. So here we have someone leaving. And there's the 400. Boom. So it charged him 400 when he landed, another 400 when he left. And that's everyone will eventually leave. And this is what you want. You want this kind of churn right here. Want the planes, taking off, landing, parking, and then going back and repeating the cycle, because that's what gives us money. Notice how we are nice and in the black here. Or, well, I guess in the green in this particular case. Now, as the evening draws on, the planes are going to slow down. Nobody really wants to fly at night. And actually, there is actually a forbidden time for restriction here. So there's a, past 2200 and up until 5 a.m., you are not allowed in this world anyway to fly. You actually get a penalty if a plane somehow gets delayed long enough and takes off or lands during a restricted time. Not a huge penalty, but still something to keep in mind. All right, so now there's a little bit more we can do to help improve things on a number of different fields. First off, you'll notice that when the smaller planes are landing, they slow down enough to basically taxiing speeds long before they get off the runway, and then they essentially just taxi on the runway the rest of the way off. That's inefficient, because while they're taxiing off the runway, they're still occupying the runway. So that's blocking people from being able to get off of it and slowing the number of planes you can turn around on the runway itself. So we're going to do something about that. So now that we have a little bit of extra cash in our pocket, we're going to spend some of it. We're going to get up some more taxiway foundations here, and we're going to get a little early offshoot for our planes here, for our little planes. Now, I've done the measurements here, and I've counted 5 of the fifth white dot up is what you want to be shooting for. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, since this dot exists sort of on either square, you can go with either square. I'm going to go with the lower one. And we're going to go down like that and down here. And just to make sure that they know they can use this, we're going to draw a taxiway path. And we're going to set a holding point down here. Not that this would ever bump into anything coming off of here, but it lets the system know that, hey, you got to, these are different partitions. And actually, just to, that'll do nicely there. So what's going to happen is when we have a small plane flying or landing on here, which at the moment is going to be pretty much everything that we have, they're going to shoot off. They're going to slow down to taxiing speed around about here and then taxi their way off of here. Once we get a little bit later in the game and start hosting larger planes that need larger spans of the runway, they'll fly further down and then just take the natural exit off of the runway right at the front here. So it makes our runway able to efficiently handle just about any size plane, regardless of what the length it stays on the runway is going to be the length it actually needs on the runway and not a moment more. Now, there's another thing that we can do to help improve our revenues here. And, while yes, we are profitable here, we can be even more profitable. And this is a little bit of a trick. I don't consider it in exploit territory, which, by the way, yes, there are a couple of exploits in this game, that you can use to gain stupidly huge amounts of money. Notably the store, the store rent, it makes way too much money at the moment. Even if nobody ever shops at it. So you could actually make more money by putting empty stores that nobody ever visits rather than actually running an airport. But that's not what you guys came here for. That's not what we're here for. So I'm going to be avoiding exploity gameplay gambits, but efficient gameplay gambits I will be. And I consider this more efficient than exploity. So what the gameplay gambit here is we're going to get our CFO. So we'll open up applications and let's take a see through them. What we're looking for is someone who charges little, because at the moment I don't think the actual stats of the employees have much of an impact. Besides, this guy's pretty good for what he's charging anyway, so we're going to hire him. All right, so now that we have ourselves a CFO, Actually, what I should have done is I should have waited until 4 a.m. Before hiring him, because now I'm paying him when I didn't have to. That was a slight misplay there, but not the end of the world. We're going to fast forward here to 4 a.m. And then that's when I should have hired him. But, we'll be okay. We'll be okay. Because the amount of money that we're going to make from him, once we put his skills into play, is going to more than make up what we just paid for having him overnight. And so what that is if we go to economy here, go to budget and fees. Now, there's a little bug here that says a CFO is required to modify fees. But if we look at our staff here, we have a CFO. But the thing is, if you set your economy to look at fees and then you go to some other tab, if you go back to economy, boom, you can access your fees now that we have a CFO. So just a little bit of a glitch, but you can get around it that way. Now, here's where you can set your prices. Now, right now, by default, everything is set right in the middle, with the exception of bathroom entrance fees. Now, these fees, you can raise them and lower them, but there are repercussions for that. In that, if you make everything stupidly expensive, you'll have people who are unhappy with you. And if you have unhappy people, it's like, for example, for General Aviation, if they're unhappy with you, they won't show up as frequently. You'll have empty stands. You might have all the capacity in the world for them, but if they don't want nothing to do with you, they'll avoid your airport, and you will be losing money. So you want to keep them happy. That being said, you want to extract as much money from them as possible. So here's what I like to do. The way this game works it is, if you raise a price on something, it will make them unhappy. So we're going to really raise this price. However, if you lower the price on something else that they actually care about, it makes them happy. And when you have one high and one low, they cancel each other out. So what we're going to do is we're going to really spike the light aircraft landing fee from $400 to $750. So remember I was saying earlier where you get $400 every time they land and every time they take off? Well, now we're going to get $750 every time they land and every time they take off. Now, to counterbalance this, if we left this like this, they would be really angry with us really quickly. So we're going to counterbalance by lowering down the small stand parking down to just $10 an hour. Dirt cheap parking, but really expensive landing fees. And I found that, yes, that does have the capability of a plane deciding to just sit in their parking spot all day. But even if they do that, every plane is going to earn us a minimum of $1,500 just by showing up, because it costs them $750 to land, $750 to take off. They cannot escape my airport. Oh, and by doing this right in the morning when everyone's about to leave, all these people leaving here are going to be hit with that $750 departure fee. Ka-ching! And actually, the balance that we've actually set the things low enough. Oh, well, there's a little bug. We haven't actually built that yet. Let's get our contractors up here. Just because that's a little bug. Oh yeah. When you're dealing with one block, items, so 16 things, we only need 16 contractors. And again, once they take all the boxes, you can dismiss them all. Now, there's one thing you want to keep in mind. This is what I call the troll box. Sometimes we hired 16, but they didn't deliver all the boxes. And if we had just dismissed everyone the second all the boxes vanished, we would have missed that one, and there'd be one thing that was unbuilt. So once all the boxes are gone, just watch for an approaching truck and see if you have any troll boxes coming. That way your last contractors can grab them, and then you can dismiss everyone once that final troll box has been grabbed. All right, so we've got our extra little bailout here. Let's see, we should have somebody landing shortly. Whoop, he's off the runway, and as soon as he gets off the runway, that runway frees up to be taken off from or landed on by somebody else. So it just improves turnaround and efficiently all the more effectively. And as you can see, our hourly income, thanks to our $750 fees here, is doing much, much better. In fact, we've hit enough to have our next 20K stay in here, because we are going to want to build that up a bit more efficiently, a bit more aggressively. But I think that is going to be for our next episode. So, if you guys like this episode and you want to see more like it, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave me a comment, good, bad, or indifferent. Your feedback is always welcome. So until next time, this has been Pinstar, signing out. See ya.